are good to go here today. Hello. Welcome to the virtual classroom for Goodwill Industries in Northwest Ohio. Today, instead of Microsoft Word, we're doing a video on Excel to just go over the basics. We're going to treat it like a timesheet for a couple weeks worth of hours, go over basic functions, formatting, things like that. If you do have any questions, please let us know in the comments. You can also let us know if you'd like to see any other future videos about a certain topic, a certain program, something of that nature, and we'll try to make it happen. I'm a little out of breath already. That's good. So we will start here right about, oh, that's not supposed to go there. Right about now. So we are working with Excel 2016, which is pretty common at this point, and we'll just start with the basics. When you see a big spreadsheet like this, you don't know where to start, organizing is going to be your best bet. And you can do that in a variety of ways. You can do a lot of cell adjustments just by clicking and holding whenever you're between a cell. You could always insert by right-clicking and then going to insert or delete, things of that nature. Really anything you want to do. But that's all just the basic stuff. It's similar to any of the other Office programs and really anywhere, any web browsers and such. You have a lot of the same functions. So if you're familiar with one thing, your skills tend to develop and go towards other programs as well. So just kind of keep that in mind if you're nervous with working with the program for the first time or something like that. Now that we got the very, very basics out of the way, and that could range anywhere, again, like Word if we wanted to bold something or something of that nature, we're going to start making our table right away. And a good way to start is to make sure things are organized, like I said. So if we wanted to do something like this, that's 5, that's 7. We want to title this table that we're going to make, and if I put in weekly time report or monthly or whatever it is, this is again just an example, we see that it kind of bleeds into both cells, and that's kind of weird. We do have an option of expanding this this column here. You have your columns and rows, but that's also not the best, and then it's not centered because we're going to deal with every day of the week and different months and all that type of stuff. So one of my favorite things to start with when I'm titling things and getting prepared is to grab as many cells as I want and use the merge and center function, and it kind of shows you what it's going to do here. If we click that, we have now a title essentially, so it's going to start that organization, and we can further expand upon that idea with something like a border, and you have all your different options here if we wanted to do that, and then it kind of separates it, and this is just for readability, something that I like to do when I'm making a variety of different tables or things of that nature. So for right now we will just use the bottom border, so that way we know what's going on there. We know that that's our title, and we'll just start filling this in a little bit with the days of the week. So from Sunday to Monday, and I'm tabbing using the tab key on the left side of the keyboard between the cells to make this a little bit easier for me. And now we're starting to get somewhere, essentially, is what I'm getting at. The next thing, maybe we want to do a certain amount of weeks. In this example, we're going to do about a month, so 4 weeks. So we'll just start with week 1 because who knows what month it's going to be. And one cool thing that we can do with something like this, anytime you have a number, such as 1 in this scenario, is if you drag it down like so, it will count in order for you. And so instead of having to type in week 2, week 3, week 4, we just drag that down from the corner and it will keep going. But we're only going to do 4 weeks for the sake of this one. So from here, we can now start typing in our hours. And this would just be, again, as the example of you keeping track of your own items. And then we're going to find ways to make averages and totals and expected income based on an example hourly rate, so on and so forth. So just bear with me for a second. If we went through this first week and say we're working full time, you know, we have 8, 8, 8, and 8. So we're working that standard 40-hour work week. You know, everything's pretty cool. And we can confirm that if we want to by saying something like the weekly total. And with this another organization, we're going to center that so that way it looks a little nicer. It's always nice to use these tools up here, again very similar to Microsoft Word. And from this weekly total, we're going to make it so that way, regardless of the numbers in these cells here, in these boxes here, we're going to always get the proper sum of the totals, which seems pretty simple, but it saves you time. So anytime we're doing an equation in its cell, we're going to start with an equal sign, and when you do that, you'll notice that this little box up here will immediately change and give you some very common functions with the option to go into more if you ever want to. So we'll just stick with sum, and then you can do it this way. So if we start with a number 1, the number doesn't have to be an actual number. It can be if you wanted it to do the addition for you. But, oh, excuse me. The alternative is to use the different cells. Every box is a cell, and then add those up. So if we look at our screen and we see that we are in column B and row 3, we'll just start with B3. And then we should be able to just continuously add to that, you know, like C3 and D3, so on and so forth. Now, the alternative way for that is if we do that equals, and we do sum. Now this is important because you do have to format it right, so it's going to be the equal sign, the equation name or type, in this case sum or the total, a parentheses, and then again with this number 1. And so we're going to keep that cell number, and you see when we're doing it in this way, when we're typing it manually, that you have the box highlight, and so this is to keep track of what you're getting. If we use a colon here and then type the end of the row, such as H3, and then close the parentheses, and then we're just going to hit enter. And you'll see that we have the sum here that will count up all of our hours. And what's cool is that, say I had to go back and change something. Let's say actually on Wednesday I took a half day, for example, and we change that to 4. This will automatically change because it doesn't matter what you put in here in terms of numbers. It's going to just add in all of the numbers that you put there forever until you change it. So we'll change that back to that. Now, keeping what we did over here in mind when we did these weeks and all that, kind of bouncing back and forth, but it's a good time to mention this, is that maybe we don't want to put this sum function in for every line because that just gets annoying. You know, it's something that wastes time. So if we want to be a little bit more efficient, we can use what's called the format painter. So if we select a cell that has the format that we want and we click on format painter, you see that this starts to, it marks itself. And then we're going to click and drag down to the other weeks. Oh, well, it's supposed to work. Or we can just do it this way. Either way works. Because doing this pull down function when we have the equation in there is going to get us to the same spot. So we'll redo that because I misclicked a second, which is a good time to do sum B3 or whatever the first cell is that you're looking at, and then we are going to H3. And so that will maintain itself. And we see when we're clicking through these other ones, if I click on this week 4, we see that the sum, since I dragged it down, now pulls from B sits, so B sits all the way to H sits. So anything I put in this row will go here, anything I put in the third row will go here, so on and so forth. So if we say that we don't work on the weekends, because who wants to do that? And we're working. Let's say this week we took a short Friday. That sounds nice sometimes, but not always the case. This week, say maybe we took that short Friday before our 2 days of vacation, but otherwise we worked. And again, using that tab key is really helpful here because instead of having to click on each different cell, I'm just using the tab on the left side of the keyboard, or the arrow keys as well, whatever suits you. You are able to use those to navigate around the cells, and do that as you get more efficient and more familiar with the program, just so things aren't as confusing for you. So we see our weekly totals are in here, so that's helpful. We can keep track of the hours that we worked in these examples and really see what's what. One thing, you know, say you have multiple weeks, say you maybe just not thinking about it, maybe you want to find out why this week is 24 hours or something of that nature, or maybe you have some type of reporting system that you have to inform a supervisor, or again for your own records, why you have less hours on one day compared to another. For something like that, if I were to highlight all of the hours, I'm not really worried about the weekends because we're lucky enough in this example to not work on the weekends. We can use something called conditional formatting, and you'll see that in the box up here. So if we click on that, you get a number of options. We're going to just stick with highlight right now, and then without clicking on anything, I'm just mousing over this and then mousing past that. We'll find out what's less than. So this will give us a number, and we'll say anything less than 8 hours, just to see days that we missed hours, to see why we're not at the 40 hours for a normal week. And if we go from there, we can edit the text as need be, so we will just go with the red text, or maybe we want to do a light red fill. So we'll do that. And now, anytime in one of these squares, if I change the number to something like an 8, since the condition is that if it is less than 8, it will turn red, for example. But if it is 8 or more, it'll be the normal blank background. This is a good way to keep track of odd and end pieces. If you had a bigger spreadsheet where you were managing other people's hours, or if you wanted to see any type of discrepancies, for example, if you were to grab all of the data and then use that conditional formatting and then use the variety of options here, but again in this scenario we just used less than, you're able to see what's what, because you cannot, the red or whatever option you choose will pull your eyes to it, and then you can go from there whether you need to explain something or showcase it, whatever works for you. So from here, now we do have these weekly totals. Maybe after the 4 weeks, perhaps we want to see a monthly total. And so if we did something like that, then we will just center. There it is. I should know where that's at. From here, if we want to do another total of all of our weekly hours for the month, we'll just use another example of the sum function. So we have sum, and then looking at where we are in the I column. So we are in I3 all the way down to I6. So I'll type in I3 colon I6. And it highlights us to show us what we are going to be getting the total sum of. Enter, and we have the sum of these numbers. Now again, since these are just equations that are pulling directly from the other cells, if we change something in here, such as this, it changes this, because this is just the sum of these lines here, of these columns here rather, and this is the sum of these numbers. So all of the equations kind of bounce off of each other, so you don't need to worry about it. Once you have it in place, you don't need to continuously check back because it will do the basic equations for you without any issue. So, and maybe again, formatting this, let's do it just because it'll look nicer. We'll center that. We can even bold it if we want to. We could highlight this row, or if we wanted to, we could do that conditional formatting again, and we could do that for these. We can say less than 40, put a yellow, and we should be able to do a light red for anything less than 32, for example, if we miss 2 days. So we have 2 sets of conditional formatting on these lines here, and that will show us, hey, this week we didn't get to 40 hours. Something happened there. We're probably aware of it, but or if you had a number adding up for amount that you were supposed to get, again, just take this as the example, but you could set that, if it's less than a certain amount, we'll make it yellow, so that way we know to look out for that. But if it's far less, in this example, 2 days worth of hours less, we might want to really pay attention to that, or if we were acting as some type of supervisor and handing this to an employee, making sure that their attention is brought to it. So using that conditional formatting is really nice. In the same instance, we could do something like, if this is, and in a better note rather, if we wanted to say, as long as this is greater than 120, we'll green. And then that green would be a good number, or for whatever it means. You could even set a little code for yourself somewhere in here. If you were printing this sheet off, you could color a cell and then say this is good. You could color the next cell and say warning, and color the final cell and say add. And you have a little key if you wanted to for your employee to look at, or for you to reference yourself. So now that we have a total, maybe we want to see an average as another example. So if we did that again, average hours, and we'll center that. And again, the alternative, instead of clicking here and centering and all that, is to use that format painter from here to here, and then it'll keep the same format, especially if I were to be bolding this or something of that nature. If I just drag that down here, now you see that that bolds too. Very helpful to use, so that way you're not consistently doing the same actions, wasting time. If we wanted to do the average though, we would do, well, let's say average weekly hours actually. Now, this is another time that we could either expand the cell or merge and center. In this instance, let's use the wrap text. And so when we wrap text, that will automatically size the box, so that way every word can be seen properly, but it will adjust the size of the box, which may affect how your spreadsheet looks as a whole. So it's just something to look out for. So if we have our average weekly hours, and we do equal sign, again, for every function or every equation, you're going to do an equal sign first, average, do the parentheses, and let's just do based off of these weekly totals. So the average from I3 through I6, close the parentheses. So again, we have the first cell, a colon, the last cell, and parentheses on both sides of that. We'll hit enter, and now we have our average pulled from these numbers. And again, it doesn't matter what I do over here, these will all change based on the other rules, other functions, other formatting that we have already put in place. So now we have our average weekly hours, and we can center that if we want to, so on and so forth. Now, let's say we want to see how much we're going to make, theoretically. And this is, of course, before taxes or anything like that. Let's just say we made $15 an hour, and we want to find how much money we expect to gross from a month of these hours that we have here. So if we did gross income, and we'll just format painter that. Now we have that, and I guess while we're at it, we should probably format that as well, so that way everything looks the right way. If we wanted to get something like this, another thing we can do is just more equations essentially, and these are very helpful. The reason why I'm giving multiple examples of these is because it's probably the best thing to use this for. So we use that equal sign, and let's say again we make $15 an hour. So 15 and then just multiplying by the monthly total. So that is I9. Oops. And put the multiplication symbol in the center there too. So if we do the equals, a number that we want to multiply by, multiply it, and then the cell, we have now this number edited by this number. And again, say we change this, this changes this, this changes this, this changes this. For the same idea, if we wanted to do average gross income, and maybe we will format painter from here because it's a couple letters, a couple words rather. And from here we can equal the equals 15 times average, whoops, equals 15 times average, and anytime you can edit it down here in the cell or up here. Well, I guess we already have the average. Sorry about that. 15 times whatever number we have there, and let's say I12? 12. And so our average weekly gross income is right here. And regardless of how I change these other weeks and so on and so forth, that same idea applies to itself. So what else do we have here? Now we have all these fancy pieces and parts, and we could continue this idea down here if we kept on going, if you wanted to. And see, this is one of those reasons why maybe not so much word wrap at the merging center, because now these cells are kind of out of place, but that's all up to you. But if we went to another month and we filled out these hours here, we could continuously do this, and you could keep using the same sheet if you didn't care about the past numbers, or you could save that separately, or you could just drag this down all the way and change the the monthly to, instead of I3 through I6, if we move these off to the side here by copying, so that's you can right click and copy, or if you like to use the keyboard commands, you can use the control button and C at the same time, and we'll see that that's highlighted. And let's just move that over here. And now sometimes when you do that, the equations will get a little messed up, but we're going to change those anyways, so don't worry about that. But if we did that, whoops, you'll see that it goes to each cell because we're only copying this. So if we go to multiple times, it's obviously going to get a little out of hand, so be careful with that. But again, if we took this example, moved the monthly total over here, and then started adding in more and more numbers, we'll get further and further with whatever we wanted to do. What else is in my notes here? We have that. We could also do something such as, let's see here, if we wanted to see how many vacation hours that we used, for example, or sick time, if we had a total, we could always do like vacation hours used. We'll expand that a little bit. You have multiple ways to do the same thing here. So there, we could just equal a number. So let's say we normally work 160 hours out of 4 weeks. Excuse me. Minus, that is I9. So we just took 160 as just the number that you or me would know, since this is, let's say that this is our timesheet, and we just did a minus and then minus a cell. Just one thing to always note is to use these cells as numbers and just reference the letter and then the number. And this works with any cell, and all of its cells far down, as far to the side you want to go, that will always work. That's just the program. And when we do that, we're able to see anything that we need to. And if we had, let's say we go to the next month, and next month we work 40 hours every week. First of all, we get the green here. We could make sure that we apply the formatting here. If it's greater than 39, let's fill it green. And so if I were to put my hours in here and I wasn't sure and I'm just putting it in off the sheet, and then I'm entering then the numbers into Excel or off of a different document or something of that nature, we can see everything adds up. We got 40 hours, we got 160 hours for the month, our average is 40, and then we get to see our numbers based off of the $15 an hour, just using that as an example. And we even get to see, since we have 160 as our normal monthly total, that we didn't use any vacation or sick time or anything like that. So that is kind of the basics of Excel in 30 minutes-ish. I don't know, we have a couple of people watching apparently, not many. But if there are any questions or anything like that, you are more than welcome to ask. And then, you know, we are going to be doing other future videos as well. But from here, we were able to see, using this pull down function to move our formatting, we're able to do a similar level if we, you know, did a copy and a paste, and that's the right click copy and right click paste, or if you use the keyboard commands, the Control C and the Control V, and whatever you have on the clipboard when you copy it will highlight like that. So don't worry about that if you're not worried, if you're not copying or anything though. We're able to see our weekly totals, and since we dragged those numbers down with this bottom right key and dragging it down like so, we're able to move that so that way we don't have to keep using the same formula over and over and over again. If we want to see a weekly total, or a week or a series worth of numbers, it doesn't have to be weekly hours. Use this for a variety of options, but you're able to see that we have another sum here that goes off of these numbers, and it's really important just to remember that the formulas will all play off of themselves. So this is based off of this, which is based off of these numbers, just like this is based off of these numbers, and it just continues on as much as you need it to do. These Excel sheets can get very large. You can also have separate sheets when you're going down here, so you can easily pop between the two if you use this plus sign at the bottom here, and you can edit those entirely separately, or if you have sensitive information or whatnot, you can protect the sheets. You can do a lot with Excel on that, but we're just trying to get over the basics right now. So, and the basics are going to be formatting, formulas, which are probably the biggest part, and then organizing from there. So say we wanted to take this and give it some borders, and then this will just make it, make it look a little bit nicer if we go to print something. Because if you print just the blank sheet, sometimes without any borders rather, you will not get these lines that we see here. So you would want to apply all borders like that, and then when you print this out, you will actually see the lines, so that way it looks exactly like it does when you are doing your actual work in the program. So just trying to keep that in mind. If you don't have the borders on and you go to print it, it might not look the right way. It might look different from how you want it to look, essentially. And then when you do that, since you're printing, obviously they're just going to see the numbers, but if you have the sheet open, or if you send this sheet to somebody in an email or through flash drive, whatnot, they will be able to see all of the formulas that you use and be able to edit those or use those as needed. So I believe that is all we need to go over for today, and I hope this was helpful for whoever does end up watching it or is watching it now. Let us know if you have questions in the future. Keep an eye out for our next video, probably sometime near the end of next month, as we either go through, I believe we are doing a video on Outlook for those in a place of employment who want to use their email that they're provided to the fullest extent, And then past that, we probably will start touching some more IT-related topics to get individuals who are interested but maybe not aware or knowledgeable about those types of things, getting those in front of you as well, so that way there's some more how-tos on there and spreading the knowledge. So, have a good one.